I'm Nick, and this is a new MATX case from ASUS called the AP202. It's kind of a dual chamber case, kind of not. It's got a couple very strange quirks. So let's dive in and take a look. And then I'll let you guys know if it's worth its starting price of $95 US. All right, here it is, the ASUS Prime AP202. In terms of the dimensions of the case, it's 460 millimeters deep, 236 millimeters wide, and 441 millimeters tall. So it is taller than your typical MATX case. But that's because of this very interesting airflow design for intake at the bottom of the case with this interesting scoop, which we'll talk a bit about when we come to the thermals. To get inside is quite interesting. You have to make sure that you read these instructions. You need to loosen the two captive thumb screws, and then the whole curved TG side panel slides towards you if you're pulling at the glass. Be very careful not to drop the TG panel here, and it's kind of on rails, and you slide it, and then you can pull that away from the case. As you can see here, it is one single piece of curved tempered glass. This is before I peel the plastic off it, so obviously it's not as clear as it is when you have it peeled. To remove the rear panel, there's a little notch on the edge of the back. Put your fingers in it, you can pop that out, and then you can pop all of the corners, then lift the panel up and then away from the case. To remove the top panel, only one side lifts up, and that is the side closest to the back side of the case, and you can lift that and then pull the panel up and then away from the case. There's no dust filters on this case whatsoever. Finally, to remove the inner bottom panel, which is also a fan bracket, there's 3 thumb screws. You can loosen those thumb screws and then lift that panel up and then away from the case. In terms of front I/O, there's a power button with a combined power light, 2 USB Type-A ports, a USB Type-C port, a combined headphone and microphone jack, and then a reset button. As for the case wiring, we've got our front panel audio cable, a USB Type-A cable, the front panel cable for the lights and the switches, as well as a USB Type-C cable. For storage, you can either install 2 2.5-inch drives or 2 3.5-inch drives, or a combination of 1 or 2 of a 2.5-inch or a 3.5-inch drive on these drive sleds. For motherboard support, because this is an MATX case, it supports ITX and MATX boards only. There is no back connector support here because ASUS does not make a BTF MATX board. Kind of makes sense, but it would have been nice to see them include the support for that anyway. As for fan and radiator support, on the side, you can install up to 2 120mm fans. This is the ARGB version of the case, so it does have included fans on the side. But as you can see, I'm not sure why they didn't include reverse pitch fan blades for the fans here. And even if they didn't, I don't understand why these fans are set to exhaust. It doesn't make sense from an airflow perspective. So quite obviously, you can see me flipping them over. There's also another pre-installed 120mm fan on the rear of the case. All of the fans here are PWM, and they're also all daisy chainable 3-pin 5V addressable RGB. As for top fan and radiator compatibility, you could install up to a 360mm liquid cooler at the top, or you can do 2 140mm fans or 3 120mm fans. As you can see here, I installed a 360mm liquid cooler because this is really what this case is designed to accept. I mean, that is if you're using an all-in-one liquid cooler. As mentioned previously, there is a fan bracket at the bottom of the case, and this will accept up to 3 120mm fans. You can do 2 120s if you like, but 140mm fans are not supported on this bottom bracket. As for power supply support, the AP202 supports power supplies with a maximum length of up to 200mm. As for GPU support in the AP202, because this is an MATX case, it does not support vertical GPU mounting. As for maximum length, it will support GPUs up to 420mm long. He said the number. Cable management in the AP202 is very, very nice. It's got 2 massive Velcro tie downs. I didn't really try for cable management here. In fact, the EPS cables, I didn't even cable manage them at all, and it still looks perfectly fine. All right, let's pop the panels back on. Make sure you are careful when you're reinstalling the curved TG side panel. Like I mentioned, there are little rails that the TG side panel slides into, but again, caution is always a good thing. Overall, the experience of building in the AP202 is quite nice. It's a very easy case to build in, but we need to talk about those thermals because it is a bit of an interesting one. All right, let's take a quick look at the thermals. What you're seeing on your screen right now is the thermals aren't too bad at all. What's interesting about it is ASUS decided to set the side fans to exhaust, not intake. I just think it's strange because what's happening is if you have that set to exhaust, none of the air is going up to the cooler at the top, right? It needs a fresh air feed from the side to go into the radiator for cooling. I think they probably had a million of these fans and I'm like, oh, we'll just put it in there and let people decide for themselves. I think this is gonna be the real thing with this case too. I think that the thermals are most likely better because I changed the fans around. And to be honest, it's aesthetic having the fans the other way. Yeah, realistically, not optimal for airflow. Now, if they did reverse pitch fans, which they could have easily have done, then it may have solved that aesthetic thing. But overall, yeah, the thermals are fine, they're fine. Keep in mind, the GPU that I used here is not a GPU that will particularly get too hot. And the reason why I didn't use something bigger is because the board that I decided to use. So a lot of the time when I do these builds, I'll pick the motherboard first and then I'll figure out, oh, you know, this GPU and whatnot will go with the build. But because this MATX board has the PCIe slot in the second position, it limits your GPU usage in a case like this, especially if you're using fans on the bottom. This is something that I've talked about in length in other videos about motherboard vendors, for some reason, putting slots now in the second position. It just doesn't make sense to do that, especially if you're trying to build a smaller system. And a lot of these boards have a second expansion slot, and if it's in the second position, how can you possibly use the second expansion slot? And with this case in particular, you have the fans at the bottom, which would block that anyway. I just think it's a little bit strange because I'm using an ASUS board in an ASUS case and it feels like it's almost not compatible. Does that make sense? Other than that, I think this case gets a little bit of a bad rap from people who've reviewed it before and just stuff that I've seen around the place. It's really not a terrible case. It does have some weird design choices, but I think that's because of ASUS as a company kind of trying to make it fall in line with products they already make. Say for instance, with the motherboard compatibility in the AP202, it doesn't support back connector MATX boards. It could easily support that, but the fact that ASUS doesn't make any BTF MATX boards is the only reason why it doesn't support it. I think it's weird because I think the other side of that is because MSI did the back connector MATX boards first and they kind of came up with the standard for it and ASUS hasn't really made one, it might be a pride thing as well. You know, like, oh, we didn't come up with the placement, so we're not going to use some other vendor's placement for stuff. As for the design with this scoop at the bottom, I got to be honest with you, kind of love it. People are going to hate on it. Kind of makes it look like the case is floating. I kind of love it. I don't really have a problem with this case other than the couple things that I mentioned. And for an MATX case, it's about the size of a regular mid-tower as it is. So yeah, like, to be honest, it's really not a terrible case. And at $95 US without the fans, I don't think you're gonna hate it. The airflow is perfectly fine, but to be honest, keep in mind all of the considerations that I mentioned earlier with just picking the right motherboard combination as well. That's the other thing, guys. Like, a lot of the time when it comes to PC builds, people will just buy all the hardware and not really look at what is gonna fit. That's kind of what I did with this, was like, oh, you know, this will work. And luckily I had this graphics card to put in here to make it work, because the 5090 that I was planning on installing wouldn't have fit.
I think it looks nice.
I think it looks nice. I think this combination of hardware is a really nice balance for what it is. And honestly, I really don't have anything bad to say about this case. It is better than I thought it was going to be, in the terms that it's really easy to build in, cable management is perfectly adequate. And again, people who have reviewed this case previously have given it a bad rap for no reason at all, because even the price is fine. $95 US for a single piece of curved glass. You guys know how hard it is to make curved glass? Especially, and I'll give ASUS, like, I'll give them this, right? The clarity of the glass with this type of curve is crazy. It's really good. Let us know your thoughts. $95 US. I think that, you know, it's probably worth it. What was the Aussie price? 159?
Roughly.
Yeah, roughly 159. So yeah, let us know your thoughts. I really didn't hate this case. Better than I thought it was going to be.